got here for Team Multitude Gaming. It is going to be Frostswarms. I'm trying to actually see what race this guy plays. He is going to be another Zerg, so MxG is sticking to this strategy of trying to snipe out Coyote in a Zerg versus Zerg on Ohana. So everything that we were talking about before in regards to this map, Nighter, is going to be definitely applicable once again. Frostworm's is a little bit of a different player though, but I'm not too familiar with him.
Yeah, I mean he's a rank 166 Grandmaster. I've played him a few times on ladder. I've never played him when I played Zerg, but since I started Protoss again, he's a very, very, very good player. And this is gonna be. I'm really excited to see these games because Swarm is a very good player. Um, and I do like his name. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what about it. I just think it's a really cool name. But anyways, I think these are gonna be good games. I'm excited to see what happens.
You know, Frostswarm kind of. I'm thinking about how a player could come up with a name like this one. I'm thinking Froststorm is probably a Warcraft 3 player, and I think he
Yeah,
probably used to play Undead. And that would just kind of like be a name that would fit so thematically with that race, and like the natural transition from like Undead to Zerg, like, makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of my theory, guys, but I don't know. I'm just kind of making stuff up at this point
yeah.
while
I'm
we
sure
wait for
there's
our two
somebody out
players
there
to
in the
load
chat
in.
that's just like yelling, "Hey, this is what it is." But we'll see what happens.
Alrighty, well, this is going to be our second attempt at game number 2. We do have our Blue Zerg player spawning down here in the bottom right position for Team Optik, putting Team Optik up 1-0 in the previous game. He is going to be Optik Coyote.
And then in the top left for MxG, we have Frostworm playing as the Red Zerg.
Red versus blue, Zerg versus Zerg. It doesn't get any more even than this, folks. Now, Ohana, like me and Nida were talking about before, is kind of an interesting map for Zerg versus Zerg. And, Nida, I wasn't making it up before. I've been seeing a lot of two-base Muta on this map. I saw, what was it, Vortex versus Stefano on this
Yeah.
map go two-base Muta. I've seen all sorts of different a lot of different Zerg players go for two-base Muta on this map, and it's really kind of counterintuitive for me because I really think that the layout of this map really favors a heavy ground game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's not very much flying room behind the mineral line, so I don't really like the two-base Muta. I feel like, yeah, maybe you can take advantage of the fact that it isn't very common on this map, but we'll see what happens here. I mean, everybody has their style. Sometimes people don't like to change their style depending on map. Sometimes people have a certain style they like to play, whether it be Muta or Hydralisk or just Mass Roach, and they like to keep it the same on every map, which is, some players like that, so.
We have a little bit of a divergence in tech for these two players. The pool for Coyote going down a little bit earlier than the pool for Frostswarm, but both players are not opting to go for a really, really greedy hatch first, and neither one of them has started speed just yet. So it does look like both of these pools are at a timing where both players want to go into a little bit of a higher tech unit choice from here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're both going pool first, so there's not going to be anything crazy. Usually, people don't play that greedy on this map because it is like it's at a very short rush distance. They know where their opponent spawns. They're getting the exact same hatch times. Looks like just mirror builds right now from the two of them.
Yeah, a little bit of a faster hatchery for Frostworms and a little bit of a faster spawning pool for Coyote. So overall, the two players are really, really even in their timings. It's really going to be. Okay, here we go. Now we have the first real divergence for these two players. We have a gas being thrown down at 18 for Coyote, and actually the gas is going down at around the same time for Frostworm. So again, both players are really mirroring each other's build times.
Yeah.
And really the only divergence is going to come up as to when each player starts speed and which one of them starts to be aggressive first.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what it really comes down to is just overlord positioning. See how many lings your opponent gets out. The reason why I feel like heavy baneling, ling pressure early on is really good on this map because it is pretty short. You can get those lings and banelings across very fast. By the time that your opponent sees them, he might have just made a round of drones. Then he will just flat out lose to it. And so we'll see what happens if either of them try and be aggressive or they try and go for that early third or just higher tech off two base.
All right. Well, I mean, we're not going to be seeing. We're still not seeing any sort of indication of what kind of tech each player is going to be going for. We do have a little bit of a higher. We do have that 100 gas stockpiled for Coyote just a little bit sooner than Frostworm, so his speed is going to get started that much sooner. Only a 10-second difference, which isn't necessarily that big of a deal. Although there it is. Okay, so it's a 19-second difference in speed timing between these two players, which is just like a needle thin timing where Coyote could potentially
Yeah.
abuse it. So I really don't think we're going to be seeing anything overly aggressive from either player. We have a Baneling Nest being thrown down for both players, so they are just exactly mirroring each
Exactly
other.
the same. Yeah, I
As
actually really like the positioning of the Bailey Nest here from Swarm. I like it a little more than Coyotes. Because, Coyotes right now, it really doesn't block a ton. Two of the boxes from the Bailey Nest are covering the hatchery. That really doesn't do much good. Where Frost Swarms, he can pull one more queen down there, and that, from the hatchery to the ramp, it is completely blocked off.
Yeah, you're definitely right, Netter. The positioning for these Baneling Nests could potentially play a role in this game, but I am actually wondering where this extra 2 supply for Frostswarms is coming from at this point because, oh, it is actually in drones. We have a 38 to 34 drone count for our 2 Zerg players right now, and I think that the money that was going into that is actually for that spine crawler. So that positioning for Optik Coyote now starting to make a little bit more sense because that spine crawler is blocking the ramp the same way that the spine
Yeah.
crawler or the Baneling Nest and Queen are going to be blocking the ramp for Frostworms.
Yeah, when you think about it, one spine crawler that's 2 drones, and then also the drone that goes into it. So there's the 3 drone lead that Frostswarm had. But it looks like now he's taking more gases. He's getting a Roach Warren, actually, a fairly early Roach Warren. So we'll see if that plays a factor in this game.
Well, we got Roach. We had a Roachborn. There it is. We have a Roachborn going down also. So it does
Yeah.
look like Frostworm is actually posturing up to be the aggressor in this matchup. We have a much faster lair timing coming out here for Coyote. So now this is where things start to get interesting, folks. Coyote is in a position where he really has to defend his base and get up that and get into a position where he's able to abuse that faster lair timing. We did have a single Baneling forcing back a lot of Zerglings, so a really good pushback from Coyote, but his Roach Warren was denied. So this is going to put Froststorm into a position where he can abuse the fact that his opponent does not have a Roach Warren available, but instead he is going to take that opportunity to take a third base instead.
I'm going to be honest. I like the idea that he's taking a third base. He did put on pressure, took a third behind it. But, of course he didn't know he was going to snipe the Roach Warren. But if he didn't have that third down, he could have done a really nice timing where he would have roaches and his opponent would not. And on a really small ramp like Johanna, you can really abuse the fact that your opponent only has lanes. But it looks like he did just take a third behind it, so his third's going to be up way faster, which I love. He put on a little bit of fake pressure. He didn't make any banelings with it, just a little bit of fake pressure. And he put Coyote into more of a defensive position.
Yeah, Coyote is definitely going to be in a little bit more of a defensive position, but now because he knows the fact that his opponent has got such a faster third than him, it's going to put him into a spot where he needs to be aggressive, just at least to even up the worker counts between these two players, because Frostform has a much better economy than Coyote currently does. Now, the one
Yeah.
big advantage that Coyote has is the fact that he does have that lair up already, and
Yeah.
or both players actually have their lairs available, but there is a much bigger difference in speed timing for both players. Road speed. I can't even pronounce this word. Glial reconstitution. I've never even
Yeah.
tried to pronounce
There you go.
road speed before. So there is going to be a much bigger difference for our two players in when they get their roach speed out. So this is going to give Coyote an opportunity to actually abuse that timing, but he has a big economy gap that he has to overcome.
Yeah, and I mean, most of the Zerg upgrades are extremely hard to pronounce. I feel like Blizzard just wanted to make them look a little bit more exotic by putting in those weird names. But I mean, if you look at it right now, the drone count is 64 to 44 for Swarm. He's playing a little bit greedier, getting a little bit extra drones, but I mean, he can defend. He sniped that Roach Horn. He doesn't have to worry about a big Roach push.
Yeah, there's a saying that everyone's heard: the best defense is a good offense. That is definitely very, very true in the Zerg versus Zerg matchup. Has
Yeah.
that ability to just play so greedy behind aggression that, and a
Yeah.
lot of
Because
times
they are
if
so
you
mobile.
get stuck turtling, a lot of time if you
Yeah.
get stuck turtling, you're really in a bad spot in this mirror matchup. This mirror
Yeah.
matchup really does favor the aggressor. And now we have a situation where Frostworm does have the superior economy and he is getting pathogen glands now. But meanwhile for Coyote, he's starting +2/+2 and is also going for a Hydralisk then.
Well, the thing is in Zerg vs. Zerg, unlike other matchups, is Banelings can be extremely cost efficient. So you can play greedy in the early game. You can take a quick third with a few Banelings, and if you can rely on those lucky Baneling shots. And if you make them, you're way ahead. When it comes to Roach versus Roach, it's a little bit more even. It really comes down to who has the better economy, who can pump out more roaches, and then of course whoever better surround. But if there is no surround, it really comes down to just who has the better economy to reinforce it. So it is almost good to take those greedy times early game, get a few banelings, take a quick third and over drone, and then just do huge roach follow up like Frostswarm is doing right now.
Well, we do have a big roach follow-up coming up here. The roach count is a little bit higher for Frostswarms. The Zergling count is definitely higher, but the upgrades are going to be favoring our blue Zerg player, and he does have the shorter reinforcement time, so it does look like Coyote is actually going to be able to push back the small push from Frostswarm, but Frostswarm's behind this is going up to 168 supply. He's producing 15 roaches behind this, and he does have infestors mixed in also. There are only a few infestors in this army, but we don't have any hydras out in the field for Coyote, and Coyote is actually getting completely caught out in the open. No. All of those roaches are getting fungal growth, and this is going to be a really bad loss for Coyote. He lost roughly half his roaches in that engagement, and this is looking really, really bad for Coyote. 187 supply to 113. And I really feel like that losing those roaches is probably going to cost the game for Coyote. This is such a big deficit for him to try and overcome.
Yeah. And I mean, those Hydras that he just popped out would be very, very strong if he had that Roach support to take the damage for the Hydras. But, losing that entire swarm of Roaches, those Hydras are basically useless because they get one-shot by the Roaches. There's no buffer for them.
The upgrades are keeping Coyote a little bit in this game right now, but the pure numbers at that point was so heavily in Frostswarm's favor that it was just too much for Coyote to overcome, and he's forced to call GG. That was a little anticlimactic, I'll be perfectly honest. Coyote had the numbers really to compete with Frostswarm's economy once those Hydralisks were able to come out on the field, but for some reason, Frostswarms was able to find like a bunch of free roaches out in the middle of the map, fungal them, and then just completely wipe them out. So, I mean, I'm not really sure how that happened. Could have just been like a simple misclick. It could have just been like, it could have just be reminiscent of old school StarCraft 1 Brood War pathing errors going on in there where, if you've ever played Brood War Niter, you'd randomly lose like half your Goliaths or half your Dragoons because they'd go off on the map, and you're just kind of like, where did you guys go? You guys are off on Safari somewhere. I'm fighting a war here, and you guys are completely taking a vacation.
Yeah, they're just having a smoke break in the back,
That it kind of looked a little bit like what happened in that game, but
I think he actually clicked on his Overseer because he had an Overseer just over top of the rocks, and it looked like the roaches were trying to cram onto the rocks. And so I feel like he clicked on his own Overseer, and that's why the roaches were glitching in there like that.
Yeah, either way, no matter how it happened, it was definitely something very, very critical for Coyote, and it cost him to lose half of his army supply, like in the blink of an eye. And if you lose half your army supply that quickly in Zerg versus Zerg, like you said before, Niter, the matchup is so fast paced. It's really, really unforgiving in that way. So.